strong support of President Trump's rescission package. In a time of extraordinary debt, this bill is a first step in a long but necessary fight to put our nation's fiscal house in order.
Senator Eric Schmidt, Republican,
but it's about
Missouri.
much more than just that. This package isn't just about how much we spend, but about what we spend it on.
And I agree with you totally.
We're still a sovereign nation, a people in command of our own destiny. It's about whether elected representatives can act on behalf of the people they serve, or whether or not they just yield to a vast bureaucratic apparatus of permanent Washington. We cannot accept a system that forces us to fund our own decline. Let me begin with something simple. We are $37 trillion in debt. We're borrowing money from our grandchildren to fund bloated bureaucracies and radical left-wing activists. While the actual American people are working long hours to afford groceries and gas, their government has been writing checks to left-wing propaganda outlets and spending billions overseas on countries that hate us. Enough is enough. This rescissions package is our opportunity to drain the swamp, not just in theory, but in practice. It claws back nearly $10 billion in spending, $9 billion, including billions for radical NGOs, hundreds of millions for foreign interests, and yes, the taxpayer funding that props up corrupt and ideologically captured institutions like NPR and PBS. And let's talk about that for just a minute, because no part of this debate has sparked more hysteria and more outrage from the left than defunding so-called public broadcasting. Why? Because they know exactly what's at stake. NPR and PBS are not neutral media outlets. They are the closest thing we've ever had in this country to Pravda. They are the arms of the left-wing activist class, taxpayer-funded platforms for political propaganda masquerading as journalism. Don't take my word for it. Take it from Yuri Berliner, a veteran NPR editor who recently blew the whistle on what's actually happening behind the scenes there. In a stunning expose, Berliner described how from COVID to Hunter Biden's laptop to the Russia hoax, NPR simply refused to consider any facts or perspectives that didn't align with the progressive party line. Even asking questions about the company's editorial bias was, and I quote, treated as evidence of disloyalty. Berliner took a survey of the ideological makeup of NPR's editorial staff in Washington, D.C. The final tally was 87 Democrats and 0 Republicans. 0 Republicans. Not a one. Then there's the new CEO of NPR, Catherine Mayer. Before she took the job, she spent years denouncing America, praising censorship, and advocating for the most extreme and grotesque forms of far-left politics. She described the First Amendment as the, quote, #1 challenge to combating disinformation, called President Trump a deranged racist sociopath, and celebrated when he was banned from Twitter, saying it was satisfying to deplatform fascists. Now she's running America's national public radio, funded in part by your hard-earned tax dollars. That, Mr. President, is nothing short of obscene. Why are Americans being forced to subsidize institutions that hate them? Why are truck drivers in Missouri paying for Ivy League grads in D.C. to tell them they're bigots? Why are we as conservatives spending billions of dollars to left-wing radicals that want to run us out of the public square? There is no good answer to these questions. The fact is, we shouldn't be. And President Trump's rescission package is a huge first step towards ensuring that we never do it again. That NPR and PBS are just the beginning. This package also takes aim at the insanity of our foreign aid budget. We are sending billions to every interest under the sun. For that, except for that of our own country. Here's a taste of what this package defunds. $18 million for gender diversity in the Mexican street lighting industry. $2.4 million to make international disaster aid more considerate of sexual orientation and gender identity. $2.2 million to reduce xenophobia towards Venezuelan migrants. $3 million for Iraqi Sesame Street. $4 million for sedentary migrants in Colombia. $6.2 million to address the needs of Venezuelan migrants in Colombia. $33 million for the UN Population Fund, including funding for transgender tampons in Bangladesh, LGBTQ campaigns in Rio, and third gender community centers in Southeast Asia. And that's not even to mention the $800 million that this package cuts from the Migration and Refugee Assistance Account, which funds the U.S. Refugee Admissions Program, a program that has been at the center of the gigantic NGO industrial complex that has been driving the mass migration crisis in this country on taxpayer dime. Americans never voted for any of this. They were never even asked. But the entire system is bankrolled by their money. Our own citizens are being pushed out of jobs, swamped by third world immigration, and told they're racist for complaining about it when people like Kathleen Mayer say something and criticize them. We send billions overseas to promote transgenderism and DEI, and spend billions here at home to help import millions of illegal immigrants and pay the salaries of people who hate us. All while our own people are told there's no money for safe streets, decent roads, or a secure border. The people who run these programs see the federal budget not as a means to serve the American people, but as a piggy bank for a global left-wing revolution. The administrative state in Washington, D.C. is the beating heart of this revolution. It redistributes hundreds of billions of dollars a year from middle America to a radical ecosystem of NGOs and activists working to undermine our civilization. For too long, the federal government has been hijacked by people with no loyalty to the country they're supposed to serve. Today, we have a chance to change that. This isn't just about saving money, it's about taking back control. Every single dollar we claw back from the NGOs in the foreign aid swamp is a dollar we take away from the people who are waging war on our country. It's a dollar we can use to secure our border, rebuild our nation, and restore the promise of America for the next generation. The left is alarmed by this bill. They should be. Unlike generations of many who came before us, who would talk a big game and then get to DC and do nothing, President Trump is actually serious about ending their taxpayer dollar gravy train. And this rescissions package is a major part of delivering on that promise. This is just a first step, but it is a big one. For a long time, Washington has only ever moved in one direction: more spending, more control, and more power for the bureaucrats. And as permanent Washington grows, the citizen shrinks. This rescissions package reflects President Trump's promise that the American government will once again serve the American people, not the other way around. It is a time to remind the bureaucrats, the NGOs, and the foreign lobbyists, and their friends in the media, that the American taxpayer does not exist to subsidize their ideological pet projects. We are not a tax farm for global leftism. We are not the world's piggy bank. We are a sovereign nation, and it's time we started acting like one once again. The American people didn't send us here to protect the status quo. They sent us here because they know the status quo is broken. They sent us here to fight and deliver for them, and that's exactly what this bill does. I urge my colleagues to join me in voting yes on this package. Mr. President, I yield the floor. Mr.
Beautiful,
President.
beautiful.